Okay, there's this small town, and it's way out in the country, and one of the pride of the region is that they have this bell tower near this country church. And everything is fine, you know, the people love to hear the bell tower chime because they do their daily chores by the timeliness of the bell ringing and that. So all of a sudden the old guy that used to chime the bell on the hour retires. So the priest who's in charge of this little congregation doesn't know what to do, and finally he puts an ad in the paper to look for a new bell ringer. So one dark and stormy night there's a knock on the door, and he goes to the door and he looks out, and first he doesn't see anybody, and he looks down and there's this real little man there, and the man has a piece of paper in his mouth, and the priest reaches down and takes the piece of paper out of his mouth, and it's the ad for the bell ringer. And the guy doesn't have any arms, that's why he had the ad in his mouth. And he goes to the little man, he goes, "Oh, you're applying for the job for bell ringer." And the guy shakes his head and he goes, "Yes." He goes, "Well, I'm sorry, son, but I don't think you're qualified. How could you do it? It's a very difficult job, and it's very strenuous. It's at the top of the tower, and it's a very hard thing to do, is to ring that bell." And the guy kind of makes a face at him, and all of a sudden he just runs past the priest, and he goes to the stairs that lead up to the tower. And the priest is in a panic, and he follows him and goes up there, and before you know it, they're both up in the tower, and the guy is like this, and he takes a charge, and he runs at the bell. And the priest is wondering, well, how's he going to ring the bell, because he's got no arms? And he runs, and he runs, and he runs real fast, and all of a sudden he hits the enormous bell with his face. And it staggers him so badly, he goes backwards, and he falls out of the tower, and he goes all the way down to his death. And the priest is horrified. He's looking down, and he can't believe this happened. You know, it happened so fast, and the poor man's down there. So he hurries down the stairs, and he goes out, and by the time he gets down there, there's a crowd around this poor man that fell to his death, and it's raining, and the priest goes over to see if there's anything he can do, and someone in the crowd says to him, "Who was that man?" And the priest kind of stammers, and he says, "I don't know, but his face rings a bell." So the priest is still in need of a bell ringer. So he keeps the ad in the paper, and a week later there's a knock on the door, and he goes and he looks down, and there's another person, a real short person, standing there with no arms, and looks almost exactly like the man that fell to his tragic death a week before. And he's got a piece of paper in his mouth, and the priest pulls a piece of paper out of his mouth, and it's of course the ad for the bell. And the priest is just about to tell him that he doesn't think he's capable of ringing the bell because he doesn't have any arms, and the guy runs past him and goes up to the tower, and the same thing happens. Priest runs past him hoping to prevent this same thing from happening, and all of a sudden the guy just charges right at the bell, hits the bell with his face, the bell goes going, and then he falls to his death. So the priest is horrified. He runs down the stairs, goes outside, and there's another crowd there, and he can't believe this has happened 2 times. So he goes over to see how the poor man is, and of course he's dead. And someone in the crowd says to him, "Father, what happened? Who was that man?" He goes, "I don't know who he was, but he's a dead ringer for the other guy." Okay, it's near the end of President Bush's 2nd term. And he's not having too much fun because everything is going wrong. But he's got these different places that he's got to go to for diplomatic reasons and that. And one of the trips he has to make is over to Great Britain. He's got to meet the Queen. Well, everything goes all right. And toward the end of the meeting with the Queen, he's got to ride in the Queen's carriage with her, and they go in front of Buckingham Palace, and the crowd is yelling and that. But the Queen notices that there's something wrong with the horse, and all of a sudden the Queen kind of smells something, and the horse is farting. Well, the first fart wasn't so bad, but the second fart was really, I mean, she's going like this. She's looking over at Bush, and apparently Bush doesn't notice it because he's still waving at the crowd and that. So this happens 3 or 4 times, and then all of a sudden the horse lets out a tremendous fart. I mean, people can hear this, and you'd swear it would put a part in their hair. So the Queen doesn't know what to do, and she just looks over at Bush, and it's obvious that Bush smelled this one. And she goes to President Bush, she goes, "Oh, I've got to apologize. I'm so sorry." And Bush goes to her, "Oh, that's okay, Your Majesty. You know, if you hadn't said anything, if you hadn't apologized, they would have thought it was the horse." Okay, you shut up.